Flipping it up and out. Bogut! Ariza's blocked by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get Rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is the basketball series. A lot of people have been asking for an emergency podcast, Pro, so they wanted us to do one a couple of days ago with everything coming out. Never a dull moment in the NBA, Pro.
Yeah, I got 5 or 6 calls today, and they're chomping at the bit. I mean, everybody wants to know how you and I think about where Jay Crowder is going to go in this trade demand. So I think that's what everybody's really on the edge of their seat about what we think about that. So
Great decoy to start the podcast. But there is a lot going on. I mean, it was kind of quiet the last couple of weeks. Besides the Sarver thing, there wasn't a whole lot of news. But we got to start with Ime Udoka, Pro. This is not a good situation for a number of reasons. There's a lot of twists and turns in this story. I think we're both somewhat across what's going on, or at least, I am. We've texted back and forth, and it's not completely clear what the details are, but I think we have 80, 90% of what has transpired. For those not familiar with what we're talking about, we'll break it down real quick and get into it. Ime Udoka has been suspended for 1 year for unspecified violation of organizational guidelines. So very open-ended there. That can mean a lot of different things. First off, for me, Pro, is like, why the suspension? I mean, I guess just real quick, you don't have to go into this deeply. Would that be in your mindset? So other team, if they were to release him, so other teams can't touch him, or I think Boston may be gauging or gorging, however you want to say it, the public sentiment with this, to see if the public are flipping out, that, and then keep him on the shelf for a year, and then maybe he comes back. But why 1 year in your opinion?
Well, I think what the ownership group of Boston is figuring out is, look, this is $1 billion corporation. This is not an AAU team, and when you do something like this, it has to be punished. And when you punish and no one's above the punishment, I think that he's still a championship level coach, at least from last year. He's the darling in the league, makes it his first year. He's got a lot of, I wouldn't say history because he's only been there a year, but I think a lot of people had some big hopes for him and big hopes for the organization. I think that, like you said, they got to gauge what's going on with the whole process. But just to give that coach up, a couple of reasons. Depending on what the arbitration would be, if you fire him, even though it's with cause, money-wise, you're still on the hook for his contract. Depending, unless you sort of iron that out. But also, you don't want to give that back up unless someone else hires him. And then I think right now they got to give themselves some time. And I think that's the first thing, figure out the whole story, figure out what the organization, what's the sort of, reading the tea leaves of how this is going to work. And then obviously see what the new coach is going to do. And going forward, because now they have all the power in this. And I think they handled it as well as anybody else could have handled this. I do commend the ownership for doing that. I wouldn't have just fired him.
I think it was chess. I think it's a chess move by them. I think, first of all, they released the Boston Celtics that, there's Ime Udoka's broken team organizational guidelines without a penalty. So they've put that out and they've waited and put their ear to the ground to see what the perception was, what's maybe also to see if the full story comes out over a couple of days. So I think they've played this in a very good way for them as well, because they're protecting themselves, which they have to do as an organization. But as we get into it, I mean, this is, allegedly what has transpired. There was a relationship, from what I've been told, 2 different women in the organization, fully consensual relationship, which carried on through the championship run, or last season when they went to the championship, and fully consensual, no issues there. I believe one of the women was married or is married, which, within all this, I think there is a conversation to be had about, there needs to be some sort of discussion around a married woman also engaging because it takes two to tango. So that's the first part of it. And the second part beyond that is that allegedly the relationship with both the women was called off by the women. It was said, enough's enough, we're not doing this anymore. And I believe this is when Udoka continued to make advances, continued to pursue the wouldn't take no for an answer type. Now, I don't think it was physical. That has not been the news I've got. I believe it was, verbal, via text, in person, that kind of stuff. But I don't think it was a DV situation. Now, I could be wrong in a couple of days, right, Pro? Like this is the only information I have to talk about right now. But that is what has transpired, where I believe the females in question felt uncomfortable at that point. And obviously it's a tricky situation. This is the head coach of one of the best teams in the NBA. You're going to have an interaction with him, even if you're selling tickets, even if you're in the ticket office, you're going to have an interaction with the head coach eventually, right? So it's something that's unavoidable. So that there is an uncomfortable part of that. And if that is right, I mean, some people say a year is warranted. Some people say it should be more. Some people say, well, if it's a year, why not just get rid of him? There's a lot of nuance in this. And, like I said, I think we've got 80-90% of it. But, you move on from that, you see, Matt Barnes, which is a separate conversation. He defends Ime Udoka initially, then backtracks heavily, quoted as saying it's deep and messy and 100 times uglier than any of us thought. I don't know how to take this neither, because I think Matt definitely got a call from the higher ups. He's an ESPN panelist at times. He's got a check from the NBA/ESPN. So I think that played a part. So there's a lot of murky, muddy water with all of this. Now, I think if Udoka has engaged in an aggressive tact to continue this relationship with these women after they said no, I think that's an issue. That's definitely an issue. And now the question is, do people think that's a year suspension? Do it's not? I'm not sure. I mean, I need to know a bit more around the details of that. But I think a year on face value is fair right now. But it's like I said, the women in question, I don't think they can be named because of legal reasons. What this has also done is it's fueled speculation on Twitter, with a bunch of people have just gone on the Celtics website, got all the women, and then got people just taking guesses about who it would be by looks or whatever. Udoka is in a relationship with a child. I mean, it's very, very messy, and this is not what you want. But just to finish this, Pro, and then I'll get you to chime in. I'm just going to put this out there so people aren't surprised. This is the part that is uncomfortable and people won't want to hear. I was in the NBA for 14, 15 years. Every team, and by every, I mean fucking every team I have been on, has had an inter-office relationship of some sort. Now, people traditionally will think players and cheerleaders, right? That was the traditional easygoing way. It's much worse than that. And every team in the league would have this, whether it's a player and a cheerleader, whether it's a player and a training staff member, whether it's a player and a masseuse, a team masseuse, whether it's a player and someone in the ticketing office. I don't care. There's relationships right now, Pro, as we speak, that have happened and are ongoing in NBA teams. So to now sit here and act like this is outrageous, and it goes back to Ethan's point last week, the perception the NBA has publicly compared to what it really is are vast, vast disparities. Like, it's not even close. And people might criticize me for airing this dirty laundry. I'm not going to name names, but this is fact. And I would argue this is fact in most workplaces. I don't care if you work at the best investment firm in the world and you've got a contract that says you cannot engage with there's people doing it. It's human nature. Humans, animals to an extent. There's a lot of sexual tension, especially in the NBA. When you've got this is the unfortunate reality. You want female empowerment and you want females to get a fair chance for jobs. What people don't understand, and this is an excuse, I'm not condoning it. 82 games, 41 on the road. You're going out to team dinners. There's drinks had 41 different times on the road. There's mingling. There's flirting going on. There's sexual tension. Shit goes down, Pro. So I just want to put it out there for everybody who thinks this is a shocking revelation in the NBA. Oh my God, Ime Udoka, I can't believe he did that. This is every team. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, Pro. Honestly, you don't have to name names, but have you ever had a season in the NBA where you have not heard any innuendo or any rumors about people within the organization?
Well,
one.
No, I mean, there's multiple, most of which were other teams. Like, there was a team in the Western Conference that an assistant coach was having an affair with secretary. He got let go. And then I've heard it on an East Coast team where a prominent assistant coach, again, same thing, somebody in the front office, secretary, I think, again. And this goes on for sure. And, the consensual thing, Bogues, to me, I just don't think it should be allowed. It's just not good. It's just not good. It opens you up for a lot of bad stuff. It opens you up for lawsuits, especially your head coach. Look, Ime Udoka is 1,000% wrong, but the person that he had the affair with, it wasn't like an assistant coach or someone that he has direct, at least that's not what was given to us information wise. Like, it wasn't like he has, and he could promote this person or get them fired easily. This was somebody on the other side, but it still should not happen. It shouldn't happen at all. And he needs to know that. And the female needs to know that. He's definitely at fault here, but the female in today's society of women empowerment, you could easily go and talk to somebody if you're feeling uncomfortable, you don't want this. But you got to know that this is not going to end well. There hasn't been a secret kept since the JFK assassination. Everybody's dirty
always comes out.
Everybody's dirty laundry eventually comes out. So, and I think that, look, in today's world, it's like the Celtics handled it. Then there's people that say it was racist to do what they did. Then there's Malika Andrews going off about the female aspect about, we got to talk about the females that are at harm's way here. You can't point a finger at the female. You got a million different people's, ideas that, my cause is more important than your cause. And I think given what was happening, they found out about it in July. They probably told him, hey, you got to cut this shit out. And then obviously didn't listen. The Celtics, the ownership dealt with it. They brought an outside firm. They communicated. The guy went back on his word, and then they had to act on it. And they acted on it. And then the year suspension, you might be with it, you might be against it. Look, he needs to be punished. He should not be allowed to go and work this year or next year if they feel as though they don't want him to do that. Because he embarrassed this organization. He embarrassed the league. He embarrassed the profession. And again, when is somebody going to finally say, these are billion-dollar corporations? You don't see Apple and Google well, you might, but for the most part, big-time corporations that are worth billions of dollars. You can't treat it like you're in fucking college and this is something out of a fucking movie. It's not. You have to respect your position. You have to respect the organization. You have to respect the fucking league and your profession and what you're trying to do. And I thought the Celtics handled it well as you could. They're not going to handle it perfectly. And they can't, legally, I think that they couldn't basically tell everybody what was going on and release names. Something that happens like this, look, everything is going to get leaked. You're either going to leak it to Woj, you're going to leak it to Shams, you're going to leak it to somebody. Everybody leaks. That's just what happens. So this stuff is going to get out, and that's just the reality. People love the fucking drama. They love it. They love stuff like this. They loved it, the Sarver stuff. They love the behind-the-scenes things that happen in the league. And this is just what happens, and people report on it. Sometimes they fuck it up. And what are you going to do? It's human nature. People, like when I had a phone call that day, Bogues, and I didn't know who was involved, and somebody said, "Hey, an assistant coach was involved," and I'm like, somebody tweeted it out. I got it from like 5 different accounts, and I said, "Okay, well, that's the information then." And then I tell people that are in my group chat, "Hey, I heard it was this person," and then you find out that it was bullshit. So, that's why. It's easy to like be emotional about it, pick your side, and then more information comes in and like, holy fuck, I got to retract this because I didn't have that information yesterday. So I don't know, Bogues. What are your thoughts again?
I disagree with you where this needs to be stopped in organization. It's never going to be stopped. But human beings are animals, man. Like I just, with the level of testosterone in NBA locker room, just the NBA locker room, and now you have all these former players going into coaching roles and front office roles, and you've got all that, and then there's just so much. NBA team has 300-400 employees maybe all up with ticketing staff and everything these days. That's a lot of people that are working in close quarters together, right? And then you factor in the plane trips and the bus trips for the ones that travel. I just don't think you're going to stop it. I think to your point about Apple and Google, I think it happens there as well. It's the difference is they're on $150,000 a year and no one gives a fuck who they are. No offense to them. They're not celebrities. They're not in the public eye. So it happens in every workforce, right? So that's not an excuse for either party, but I think that the women involved also need to take some sort of, responsibility for this. Did you not know Ime had a fiance and a kid or a girlfriend and a kid? Did you not know that? There's some wrong in that as well that you're not allowed to discuss because it's a taboo subject. I'm not blaming, like I said, what happened after the consensual acts between those people where he continued, I strongly condone. They said, no, dude, move on. Get out of here. Move on. Strongly against that. But the consensual relationship, it's 50-50. It's 2 to tango. You knew that was not a married man, but pretty much got a child with an actress. You knew what you were doing. And they were, from what I hear, one was married herself. So it's like, there's 2 to tango. But I think, I don't know if 1 year's right, if it's wrong. I don't know. I don't think he's going to escape this easily. I highly doubt he's going to be back coaching the Celtics in a year, bro. I just don't.
Oh, no.
No matter how good of a, I know your point is that he's a championship coach. He's proved himself. He's done a fantastic job. They're still a pretty good team even before Ime got there, right? They were on the bubble, kind of a la Warriors-ish when Steve Kerr came in. He inherited kind of a gold mine of a team that was still pretty good and needed a few small tweaks. And don't get me wrong, he did a fantastic job. I think public sentiment won't allow him to just slide back in next season. I just don't think it happens. I think he's severely hurt his prospects as what should have potentially been a fantastic head coach for a long time, just with the way the world's going. Do I think that's fair? No, I think everyone deserves a second chance. I don't think he did. Like I said, from what I've got so far, what he did was not right. I think a year's about the right number, but if more comes out with this, even if it doesn't, I don't think he's going to coach for a long, long time. And if he does, I think he's going to have to come back through that assistant route and just quietly kind of work his way back up to the top, kind of like what Jason Kidd did or a few other guys did, and just end up with a head coaching spot. There'll still be people, and even if he gets a head coaching job in 10 years, there'll still be people that are like, he shouldn't. Sure. There'll be people like he should. And you look at, what's the Boston Celtics interim head coach, what's his name, bro? You got his name?
Yeah, Joe Mazzulla.
Okay, so he had a domestic violence charge in 09-10 apparently when he was in college or back in the younger days, coaching, or he was probably coaching in college.
He might have been playing at West Virginia. He might be playing.
Yeah, so that was brought up as soon as he was promoted as interim. People dug dirt on him and said, "Well, now you've promoted and put in charge of the Boston Celtics someone who has that 15 odd years, 12 years ago." So where do you draw the line? I mean, should people be forgiven? What's the over-under on how many years you need to be punished? So it's a tough situation. And like you said earlier, like what you said, it's not fluid. You've got women empowerment / feminists firing up. You've got people like Stephen A., of course, thinking it's racist. You've got people that are banning him for life. You've got people that are like, oh, no harm, no foul. But like I said to everyone, this happens. This is in the NBA. I was shocked how bad it was when I came in as a rookie. I came in at a different time too, no social media, so it was a lot less risk of extracurricular activity getting out there than it is today. And I saw and heard some absolutely crazy shit that people would be like, they wouldn't believe the stories if I told them, right? I'm talking, there was a guy that I heard a story about before I got to the team, a couple of years before I was there, that was, taking down interns at halftime, at halftime of games. He was on the IR at the time, and he took down he's getting sexual with an intern in the trainer's office during an NBA game. The whole team's out on the court, and that's just people are going to look at that like, whoa, that's crazy. These were the stories that after like a year or two, it was kind of like, it's the NBA. Like, once again, I don't condone it, but I'm telling you facts of what the NBA is like. It is still like that somewhat to this day. Now, is it still, like I said, at halftime in the training room? Probably not, but there's a lot of relationships going on. I've heard stories firsthand from numerous different people all throughout my career about this staff member, that staff member, this player did X, that player did Y. It is what it is. Let's not act like this is a big shock, that this is, oh my goodness. And that's where I think I agree somewhat with people that are saying Ime Udoka might be a little bit hard done by, or should it be a year? Because this is rampant. If the NBA is acting like this is a one-off, it's not. And you're going to have a lot of. I got a question for you, Pro. So this season, this training camp, we find out that a player is taken down a cheerleader, or a player is taken down someone in ticket office. What happens to the player?
There might be a little bit of thing, but it's not going to be a year. Single man, no family, young rookie, comes out his first year out of college. He's running through the organization. He's got 3 or 4 different girls on the go within the organization. What happens to the player? Generally nothing. Generally nothing.
So, and it's generally known about by teams. They'll try to move the chess pieces around on the board to keep people quiet. That's just the reality of it. So if people are shocked by that, well, shock away. But that's kind of the reality. I hope people come to their senses and this all works out. I hope there's not any more news about more than what we know, because if there's more coming out than what we know, it's not going to. There's no more good after what we know, bro. So I just hope this is it, and we can move on with it. But it's definitely lit a fire in the NBA, and I think that there'll be a lot of teams, owners, and front office and coaches with their ears pricked up, watching this case closely.
Yeah, you know what? With the Boston deal, Bogues, and how they reacted to it. You know what? Like, I've been hearing for the last 3 days, well, it happens all the time, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But you know what? Enough's a fucking enough. Boston's finally saying, look, this is not how business is done in a championship level team. Look, I get it. I understand what you're saying. It won't stop it. For sure it won't stop it. But you know what? They should put their foot down and be like, I would do it league-wide, but whatever. If I was running a team, ironclad, nobody's dating anybody, or there'll be severe consequences, because this is the shit that happens. And if they're going to do it anyway, they're going to do it anyway. That's fine. But if they get caught, there's got to be severe consequences. Because
what if they get engaged, Pro? What if they get engaged?
No, fuck that. Serious. Because there's always, today especially, this isn't 15 years ago where there was a lot more like actual loyalty. Like if I'm a guy or a girl and I'm dating somebody ahead of me, above me, and it goes bad, it goes wrong one way or another.
It always ends bad.
And I feel slighted. I'm going to sue because that person's ahead of me. They have quote unquote a position of power. I think it's bullshit, but I remember when the Mavs thing happened in 2018, we had to go through a few seminars and stuff. And what they told us are basically this outside firm, this lady came in and spoke to us, and he goes, you should not be, if you're ahead of somebody, you're above them. You should not be engaging in anything, consensual or not. You should not be engaging, because the position of power, if someone gets slighted, that's a big time lawsuit, and you're putting your job in jeopardy as well as the organization. So I would say, look, if you guys want to do this, one person's going to have to quit, because we can't have it. We cannot have it. This isn't the fucking Office with Michael Scott fucking signing a love contract to date Jan, right? This is real shit. And I get you, Bogues, 1,000%.
I agree. I agree. It muddies the waters. But on the flip side, there's a lot of people that have had fulfilling relationships by meeting someone at work. So it is hard, but it does. Like if you've got a position of power, I mean, what if the woman is chasing someone in the position of power? You know, there's also that plays out as well. We know about that. There's and the vice versa. There's a male that's in a position of power that sees himself as like, oh, you better listen to me and do what I say, otherwise, blah blah blah. So I think it sucks. And it's not going to end. It's period not going to end. That's just my opinion. I don't care what. And then look, you put in some contract, something that says immediate firing if we hear about any relationship. That to a lot of people is thrilling too. Let's not forget, people have their different quirks and likes and whatever, right? The things that turn them on. That for a lot of people, you feel like you're James Bond to an extent, right? Like sneaking around doing this, and that's why people cheat on their spouses and whatever. It's some people do it for the thrill. You're still gonna have people do it no matter what's in an ironclad contract. But moving forward, like I said, I think there's gonna be a lot of teams, watching this case and seeing how it goes, and I guess the rest will be history. But it hurts the Celtics, man. I mean, they had a chance to be, go back to a championship and potentially go one up on that. They're one of the favorites this season. And
I've been very hard on Mark Spears being race baiter, all this stuff, but I will give him some props from last week. Allison Feaster was the director of player development, vice president. And she was one of the people that were rumored to be in it. And, her picture was, being shared all over the internet.
Socials.
And he came out and said, look, Allison Feaster is not part of the investigation. Now, he could be wrong on it, but I do respect that because she was getting a lot of heat probably. And look, you got too many jerk-offs on the fucking internet, playing fucking Columbo and fucking Sherlock Holmes, trying to go through the fucking directory. And it's totally wrong, but it's just human nature. But I will give him credit for, saying, hey, she's not part of it. Lay the fuck low, get off her back with it. I do respect that. And because I've been pretty tough on the guy and I'm not a huge fan, but I will give him credit for that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, you never want to see that. When they started, people on the internet start posting pictures of different people, that can affect their family, their friends, so you never want to see that. So I totally agree. That's why I don't want to name names because we're still not 100% sure. But that's the story that I just relayed. That's kind of the closest of what I have from kind of my inner circle of people that give me pretty good insights in the NBA. And like you said, I think in another couple of weeks it'll probably be out, and then. If let's say Ime's fiance, girlfriend goes to court as well, I'm sure more will come out as well. And that's when all the details will come out. But we will see where that all goes. It's once again tricky situation. I don't think there's a right answer in this one. But I think it takes two to tango, and we move on from there. And moving on to Robert Sarver, he will sell the team pro. This kind of blindsided me. I didn't think this would happen that quickly. I thought he'd be a stubborn bastard and hold out, as we spoke about on one of the pods. Rumored at 2.5 bill as of today. It was what I got. It was pretty fair. He paid 400 for it, so 450 for it, I think. So he's made a nice little earn on that. Eager is in the investor group with Jeff Bezos, pro. So of course he is. So our conspiracy theory, or Strauss's conspiracy theory, is somewhat coming to light. And I will bet that CP3 will be involved post-retirement. That's my kind of conspiracy theory. I think once he retires, he will be getting some sort of in with that group going into Phoenix. But what are your thoughts? Right decision by Sarver just to move on, shut that door and get on with life?
From what I've been, reading about, more and more sponsors have been, threatening to drop. And I think that, I think when it really starts affecting your checkbook, your bank account, I think it's like, all right, enough's enough. Let's just fucking go on with it, because it's going to be a tough deal. I was listening to Draymond talk on his podcast about talking about the using the N-word, and he went into this like huge thing about A at the end, ER at the end, the use of it. I'm like, I was seeing fucking stars, at the, I said, no mask. Like, this word should be fucking eliminated from human language, right? And it's weird. It just is what it is. I don't think he should have sold, but with the tidal wave of people against him, I think that, I think he just sort of had enough, especially, he's a big ego guy and, he's basically going to be excommunicated from society for the most part. And he's probably like, fuck it, let's just go with it and move on. And the one thing is, Bogues, he gets to pick unlike Sterling, because he wasn't in his mental capacity and his wife sort of took over and sort of worked with the league to sell it. And they basically, they had a lot to say of who they sold it to. He will have the say in it, and he could be vindictive and say, CP was behind it. His boy's Bob Iger. Fuck it. I'll go to somebody else. So he doesn't necessarily have to go to the highest bidder, and
that will be interesting.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see if he says, you know what, I'm going to go to someone else just out of spite.
Yeah. A spiteful billionaire. That never happens.
Yeah. I'll take a 100 million less, but I'll go to this person. That will be interesting to watch. So I'm just glad it's behind us. I think a guy, Jock Landale or Lawndale,
still hasn't called me back, by the way.
Oh wow, geez, yeah, he's probably deleted your number. I flicked a few texts with him, and he said that they're all in a good spot on the club now. Everyone's happy to move on. The distraction, that kind of that dark cloud that was over their team. It would have sucked either way. Like, I know Sarver had his right to keep the team, but it would have sucked for the players to have that dark cloud over into Christmas and New Year's, and you're trying to go back and repeat as potentially a conference finalist or going to the finals. I think it's good to shut that door. I think Sarver is probably one that's not afraid of conflict, but I think no man can take the barrage he's taken over the last probably 2 or 3 months. But even with the investigation, I think the investigation was one thing, but then once this all came out, he's probably what, I've got money, look after my family, probably got his own little group of friends and just going to move on with life and get out of that spotlight, because it just would have been ongoing every single day. It would have been talking point every single day, another sponsor, and then they would have railroaded him out one way or another. So I think it's a good decision as far as just closing that door, move on. The Suns move on. Good for the NBA, good for the Phoenix Suns, and now everyone can move on and talk about Ime Udoka for the next year. So that's kind of where all that's at. Ben Simmons interview. Your thoughts on that? I saw bits and pieces of it. I saw him and Shaq go back and forth with each other. I saw a little bit about kind of his mental health and where he was at. He claimed that Doc Rivers forced him on the court when he wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't a cell phone in his Pocket Pro. It was a towel, he claims, which, yeah, I mean, Shaq had his say about that, which is pretty funny. He started answering a phone with different objects that was in front of him, that was on a podcast that I saw. But look, I mean, I think it was good for him to finally get out and tell his side of the story, whether you believe it or whether you don't. I think there's half-truths in his story, there's half-truths in everyone's story. What's interesting about this one is after he was talking shit about Doc, Austin Rivers just chimed in and basically said that Ben's full of shit and why are you people believing him? So some twists and turns throughout it. How did you feel? Did you feel he was, genuine and honest throughout, or did you think he was still kind of trying to find an excuse and then, get on to his journey in Brooklyn? Yeah,
I think he's just, again, delusional and not taking responsibility for it. And maybe Doc was a little old school and wanted him to man up and get out there and start playing and being there for the team. And I think that, it's easy just to sort of blame everybody else but yourself. And, you're an NBA player. Look, we all have mental health stuff that we're dealing with. And I just think that he wasn't taking responsibility. And I was expecting like JJ to be a little bit tough on him, and go back at him, but he really didn't. He just sort of like yesed him on with the
soft interview,
with the whole thing. I was a little, because JJ's sort of, I like JJ because he's pretty honest and pretty real on stuff. And I thought he would press him a little bit harder on it, and he didn't. And I just think,
but if you want players to continue to join your show, Pro,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
He knows a game. JJ knows a game. JJ would have received a list of things that I don't want to talk about, or things that I'm happy to answer, but I don't want to go into too depth. And he would have followed that to a T. He knows that, if you burn 1 or 2 players in the league, you're not going to get that call up. So he's essentially has to look. Everyone's conflicted in life. Everyone's got. I don't want to say hidden agenda, but everyone's conflicted to different people or different push pulls, companies, this that. So even us at times, it's human nature. But go on.
No, I just thought he didn't take responsibility. Enough responsibility. And I think to blame Doc and blame this and blame that. Look, you don't want to shoot the ball, you're afraid. I don't give a fuck about how many Instagram videos of you making 27 in a row, working out with a wife beater on. I think that you have to man up, fucking start shooting the ball. Look, everybody in the NBA, there's a lot of guys that go 1 for 11, 1 for 15. Fuck it. You shoot. You fucking shoot. That's what we do. You get your ass kicked one night. You fucking dust yourself off and you come out the fucking next night. Just man the fuck up. I know he's got mental health. Okay. I could see that to a certain extent, but not to the extent that, he's been doing some of the shit that he's been pulling throughout his career, and now look.
It's just about being honest too. Like, I think he really could have just been honest about, dude, like, you didn't want to take that dunk, because I've been there before personally. So I can talk on this subject. I've been in positions where I've been 0 for 5, 0 for 6 from the free throw line. And I wasn't as aggressive getting to the hoop because I'm like, shit, I'm 0 for 6. I don't want to let my team down and brick another 2. I've been there, and it sucks. It's awful, right? That was clear as day. That's what happened in that series. You had a wide open dunk. You didn't want to dunk it because you thought Trey was going to hack you and they're going to put you in the free throw line. It was as simple as that. So just own it. Own it. And I think that's the first stage. Once you own it, I think it helps your mental health because you're owning it. You're saying, you know what? Yeah, I did. I was in my own head. I was 1 for 8, whatever I was. They were hacker-shacking me at the start of the game. I thought I was going to get fouled. That's why I passed the ball. It wasn't because he was, Matisse was open. Like, you look at the tape and he tries to claim that it was a split-second thing and this and that. I don't think it was. I think it was as clear as you were struggling from the line, you want to get there. As a guy that's been in that position, I can speak on it. And I think if you just own it and you just admit it, just have him admit it, you move on with it. You can shut that door and you say, look, he had a struggle there, but I've worked on XYZ in the off-season. Like I said, from the start of this process, I think, I'm not as I don't think it's as important for him to get 1,000 shots up a day as it is to get some, I wouldn't say mental health well-being, I would say some techniques that he can fall back on when he's in those, that's the hardest thing. It's like, okay, 18,000 fans are booing me, I airballed a free throw. What's my fallback mentally? Where do I go? What do I do? How do I relay to get that next one up on the rim and at least give it a chance? That's I think, as important for him in this offseason. And he might be doing that. We don't know about it. He just doesn't talk about it, right? But I think that's as important for him in this offseason than, just hoisting up 1,000.
No, I agree.
Everyone, like you and I, like when we were, I was shooting free throws with an empty gym. You're knocking them down. Like it's much easier. There's less distractions. You haven't, you know what I mean? But, I think he's going to have a good regular season again. And I think that it's going to rear its ugly head in the playoffs. Once the game slows down and they can hack, they can put him on the free throw line. So I think the sooner he owns that, the better, and we get better. And I think then he'll get better with his game and knowing his deficiencies. But the last thing you want is him get into a playoff series and they can't play in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, right? As one of their, he's probably their best defender on the team, one of their elite defenders. He makes a fair point in that interview saying, hey, people forget I guarded the best player on every team. And you did. He was fantastic at that. But in playoff basketball, you can't have a guy that's locking down their best player, but then you come back down and the team can just pick on you in the offensive end as well, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah, I've been there, Bogues. Like with Rondo came to us in a trade in December. He was shooting like 40 plus from the line, like 43. And, we started working with Carlisle, started working with Hoger, and just sort of wasn't working. And we finally got together and I said, look, first of all, we got to develop some techniques, some breathing, some techniques you could have at the line, soften your shot up, holding follow throughs. But the most important thing is you got to continue to try to get there. And then we worked on it every night after games. We'd go down and we would shoot for about 45 minutes and make sure that he made all his shots. But just like same thing every time. But I'm like, look, you got to be able to get there. We ended up shooting like 75 from the line the last 20 games. And the biggest thing was getting there. The mental part of it. Look, if you go 0 for 7, who gives a fuck? You got to have the balls to fucking get there continuously. Be consistent with your routine. Be consistent with your breathing. Don't let that shit get to you. And you just got to keep shooting. It's not about, like you said, it's not about shooting 1,000 shots a day. That ain't about that. It's about being consistent with your routine, your technique, having something that you could fall back on breathing wise, and then visualization. But, you can't be afraid to get there, because it's not just going to happen, November, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to start getting to the free throw line and being Mark fucking Price. That shit ain't going to happen. You got to go through the struggle of going 0 for 8. Look at Giannis. People want to kill him for his shooting. Even when he was going, with shooting 40, he'd go 4 for 10 in a game. He was still going hard as fuck to get fouled and wrapped up and get back to that line. He never wavered. And then he would have those games where he went 10 for 10 because he went through the struggles of missing, kept his routine, never was afraid.
Game 6, right?
Yeah.
Game 6.
Now, it took him 18.
Finals, right? Wasn't he?
It took him 18 seconds to shoot his fucking free throw, but he still finally fucking made
fuck
it.
it.
Yeah, fuck it.
There's almost more pressure there at times when the crowd was counting and he was getting to 11, 12, 13. He didn't give a shit. And he knocked them down when it counted, So I guess it is hard when you're in that mental space at times, and you just hope he figures it out. But I think the interview was pretty a bunch of softballs from JJ Redick. There wasn't a whole lot there in my opinion, but it was just good to have Ben out there at least giving a message. Let's hope he comes and has a great season. I think everyone wants to see him do well. But moving on to that, Pro, the NBPA and NBA are discussing measures to allow players to cite mental health issues as an ailment similar to physical injuries. I think this is a huge slippery slope. I'm big on, mental health and that is an important part of the game, as we've talked about numerous times in this podcast. The mental aspect of the game becomes almost more than the physical, especially mid to late career. I think this is a slippery slope because with injuries, you can go get an MRI or an X-ray and be like, yep, your leg's broken, your ankle's broken, you got swelling. My thing is, this is going to be used the wrong way. I think more than the right, Pro. And I think, I don't know whether it's 60-40, but just knowing how NBA players are, how their agents are, how GMs and coaches are. Let's say you have a player that wants to trade and that the team doesn't want to trade him, a la Ben Simmons. Let's put aside Ben Simmons and let's just buy Ben Simmons that everything was mental health related, right? You can have players use this to their advantage, Pro, and there's no real way to determine it. Like you can go and sit with a psych and get analyzed for an hour, and I can tell you that I'm crazy. I can tell you that I'm depressed. I can tell you that everyone knows all the key talking points these days. Now there is going to be players that have this, right? There is going to be that's why there's no. I just don't know how you implement this rule, Pro. I don't know what your thoughts are, but to have this as a staple rule that someone can just say, 3-game road trip to Milwaukee, Indiana, and Detroit on a cold night. I might need a mental health break, Pro. I'm just going to sit this one out for 10 days. And what's the team going to do? They can't be like, can we do some testing to see if you're right to go? No, my mentals aren't right. And there's going to be players, maybe I'm cynical, but I think there's going to be more using it in the wrong way than the right.
I totally agree. I mean, I think their players sometimes just want, they want something as a crutch and they're going to use it and they're going to use it to their advantage, especially ones that struggle. And, because they've never really dealt with struggle that much before in their career. And now they're dealing with struggle. They're dealing with a head coach that's on them a little bit, the pressure of performing and really, carrying things. I think that they're going to definitely use it to, their advantage, and they're going to take advantage of the rule. Not every player is like that, obviously, but I think that if a player is going through struggle, instead of owning it and dealing with it, they're going to find something to, a crutch that they could rely on to get them out of a situation. And I think they're going to use it. I'm sorry. I do think that people use mental health in all of society, not just basketball, to their advantage when they can't deal with the rigors of real life and they can't deal with reality. I think that sometimes this stuff happens and it's unfortunate, but I do think that it is a slippery slope. I understand that you want to win the press conference and you want to be there for mental health of the league. But I think a lot of people are going to take advantage of this.
And it kills the people who really have issues, Pro. Like people that really, really have some issues, whether they stem from childhood, being grown up in a domestic violence household, outside of basketball, someone that's had, instances dealing with rape or whatever. those people need help, right? And when they come out, I think their voice gets kind of muted amongst other people that are using it for the wrong reasons or not really true in what they're doing. And for everyone out there, there's a difference between adversity and mental health problems. And that's where we need to differentiate the line between those two. Adversity sucks at times. Like I took losses harder than anyone. There were times I hate, like you'd be driving home, I played like shit, we lost, it was my fault, I fumbled the rebound or I turned it over. I am kind of depressed and I should be, right? Not to a point where I'm doing something silly, but you want that up and down to learn from it, right? And there's my whole thing is the difference between an adversity and just straight away saying, oh, I don't feel good because I lost, that must be a mental health problem. Like, no, not necessarily. Like 9 times out of 10, that's the right feeling. Now use that fuel for the next game, right? Whereas I think we're just too quick to label into like, oh, I've got a mental health problem or I'm depressed, so, I don't want to get up tomorrow and go to work. And it's a tough one because, like I said, it's not something that you can diagnose with a cast or a rehab program or get in the gym and lift some weights. I just hope people use it for the right reasons. I don't think they will. I hope people, because it hurts the very people that have the issues and need the facilities and need the help. It eats up their kind of access to that stuff, number one. And number two, it just mutes the conversation because people are like, oh, here we go again, another person with mental health issues. You don't want that. But I think this is a dangerous path for the NBA to go on. I think they know that, but I just don't think there's any way out of it. I think they're halfway down the line. It looks like it's going to eventuate. So we'll watch that space and see if this is used, or when is this going to be used for someone to get traded? Because we've seen, we'll see someone have mental health issues get traded, and then they found some world-renowned psych at the next team, and they're playing 3 nights later. They're the people I have an issue with. So we'll see how that goes. In another rule change, the age eligibility for the NBA is going to go back down to 18 from 19 for the NBA draft from, they say, 2024-25, somewhere around there. This has a little bit of a consequence to the NBL. They have the NBL Next Star rule at the moment. For those not familiar, you can get a kid out of high school. The NBL fronts a lot of money for it, helps pay that salary and living expenses and whatnot, and then the buyout somewhat shared with the club and the league. I won't go into specifics about exactly how it works, but it's along those lines. And that rule was implemented because the NBL saw an opportunity with players that didn't want to go to college, that were 18, couldn't go into the NBA, so they come to Australia for a year. And it's done wonders for our league for the most part. With Melo Ball, a few other guys, RJ Hampton came here. We had a few guys that did really well and helped the profile of the league. So that's going to hurt the NBL because, now you've got the opportunity to go straight to the NBA and not have that year. Do you like it, Pro, or do you not care about the 18-19 rule? I don't think it's a big difference for 18 to 19, in my opinion. I mean, I think a year of college does do some help, or a year or two of college does definitely help. Getting, a lot of these AAU babies and high school superstars go into a program where they've got a coach that's going to kick their ass for a couple of years and demand be on time, 6 a.m. conditioning sessions, get to class, dot your I's, cross your T's type mentality. I think it's a good thing, but I don't think the 1 year makes that much of a difference, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of players going to college, not for the coaching they get, because a lot of the coaches these days that coach these guys will coach the 92 Dream Team to a bronze medal. I'm not a big fan of college coaches. There are a few that I really like, but a lot of times the players, it's hands off. They don't really, there's a few that do a great job, but, I like it more for they play in big games. They play in conference tournament games. They play in rivalry games. They play on the road, hostile environment, and they're able to, at least for 1 year, figure some stuff out. And now with the NIL and a lot of these guys at the Power Fives making really good money, I think that it is good for them. I think that, going to the NBL, I think that the G League Elite, I don't know much about the overtime elite, but there's another avenue. And I think there's avenues where these big time players could make really good money and still develop. I'd rather the college, but the college aspect to me is better. But the whole 1 year, like, what is it going to do? It's your rookie contract. You're not making all that much money. You're making decent money, but after taxes and all that, with your NIL money and all that, it's not all that different in some situations, unless you're a top 5 or 8 pick, I guess. but it gets you to your next contract a year earlier. I get all that, but I do like that these players,
risk of injury.
Yeah, risk of injury. I don't really care either way. I like baseball, where baseball allows you to come out for the draft in high school, or if you do sign, it's like 3 years. So you can either come out of high school or you got to stay in college for 3. You can't do both for the most part. I like that rule, but hey, fuck it. If they're going to do a year earlier, it's less jobs for veterans. It's going to cut some guys off a little bit. But if that's the way they want to do it, this whole league, the whole world's about money. So that, they think they're getting screwed here and there. Fine. Let them come a year earlier. I do like the college deal. It is going to dry up the G League and Ignite. It is going to dry up the NBL stuff. It's going to dry up overtime elite to a certain extent because these guys can go to the draft. But you're going to have a lot of these kids coming out for the draft, not getting drafted. And then what do? They're going to sign with agents. They're not going to be able to go back to school. And now they're going to be floating around. So it'll be an interesting deal. Yeah, I don't care either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think it can be valuable, but look, there's a lot of guys that with that 1 year deal, go to college for a year, don't go to class.
Yeah,
just
most of them.
Ball and treat it pretty poorly anyway. So, I mean, what's the difference at this point? You might as well just let them go straight to be a pro, but it does affect the NBL next star rule is the point of that. CJ McCollum agrees to a 2-year, $64 million extension. He's now tied to the Pelicans for 4 years at $133 million. Andre Iguodala's back. He said he's just come back solely for Steph in his Andre way. So, look, I think he's valuable. He's another coach on the floor for him. I don't think he's going to give him a lot of minutes. I think he'll pick his spots. I know his body was pretty well banged up last season, but he still has that little bit of an itch left. Bojan Bogdanovic to Detroit for Kelly Olynyk and Saban Lee. This is an interesting one because you would have thought a contender would pick up Bojan and would be much more valuable in a contender. I wonder, Pro, if he ends up sticking it out in Detroit. And finally, Jay Crowder. This one caught me by surprise. So he's in the doghouse with Phoenix. They've agreed to have him not participate in training camp because he didn't want to report. You can touch on the other ones in a second, but Jay Crowder, what have I missed here? Has he requested a trade? Did he want an extension? Why all the sour milk right now?
I'm a huge fan of Jay Crowder. Jay's one of those players that is an old school, tough guy, enforcer. He's just wired like that. I think it was financially motivated. I think that he probably wanted an extension. He probably felt as though he wasn't going to get it. That's the only thing that I could see. He fit in there. He did a great job there. Maybe with Bridges and Johnson, maybe they were going to take some minutes and some opportunity. I don't know. It's very strange to me because I thought that they were all in. And I thought, I'm a big fan of that team, of what they're, what they have talent wise, especially with the role players. And it really took me by surprise that this happened. But I think it's financially motivated. He was feeling disrespected, but I mean, they got such a good team, like they got that lineup of Paul, Booker, Bridges, Crowder, and Ayton. And then you got guys like Cam Johnson. Maybe with the whole Cam Johnson thing, they're bringing him along to have more of a role. I don't know, but they're going to work out sometime.
There was no talks about extension, was there? There was
no.
I don't know what his contract situation is. You know it better than me. I need to look it up. But I mean, it's just a strange one that this close with like you said, they were championship, one of the top 5 championship favorites, to now just saying, I'm not reporting, I'm out of here. I'm not sure what to think about it. Let me see. He's a free agent.
10 million, 10.2 this year.
10.2 this year. So I assume he wanted an extension, and they probably said, kick rocks. We've got a lot of young guys we need to pay. And he said, all right, fuck you all, I'm out. That's probably as simple as that. We're probably reading too much into it, but that it wasn't in the media. Usually these things get broken. The agent will leak it, blah, 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 try to put pressure on the Suns. But I think he's a valuable piece for him. I think playing him at the stretch 4 at times, tough, nitty-gritty guy, great defender, can knock down the 3 ball. They're going to miss him, so we'll see where that all eventuates. Anything else on those other signings?
Yeah, Bogues, the McCollum I like. I mean, they got a really good team. I think New Orleans, if everything happens well with Zion, he could stay healthy. He's a big part of that team. And I think that, extended him, 2 years, 64, with these contracts these days, it's like a buck and a half, why not?
Pro, Zion Williamson is in the best shape of his life, pro. His trainer came out and made these comments. I'm not sure if you saw that. It was his trainer, and he said the best shape you'll ever see this guy in, but it was his personal trainer.
So am I. I'm at 255 instead of 256, so I'm in the best shape of my life.
I just love when the media goes and quotes a trainer of a guy like this. Like the guy's getting paid probably $200,000-$400,000 a year from the player. Do you think that his trainer's going to be like, he's being a piece of shit. He shows up at 9 a.m. when I want him there at 7. He's drinking all the Mountain Dew that sponsors him. I can't get him out of bed. Like, come on, seriously. They don't even quote it at that point. Like, it's so.
That's the thing. It's the same thing with training camp, Bogues. Every fucking player that can't shoot can shoot. Everybody that
well, I get that to an extent, pro, because they're trying to sell season tickets and they're trying to sell the hype and the sizzle, but. Like, who in the fucking media goes and asks a player's trainer, hey, how's he doing? Has there ever been one trainer that was like, terrible? Like,
no.
Come on, dude.
Not one that wants to stay employed,
anyway.
No.
Exactly.
It's
my point. Like, where'd you go to journalist school, dude? Like, it's like asking, the president's advisor for, some negative press that you've heard. Like, dude, like, what answer do you think they're going to give you? But anyway.
And then Bogdanovich thing, I'm a fan. I thought that Ainge would at least get a pick out of it. He didn't get one. He got 2 average players. He drafted Olynyk in Boston in 2013. Saban Lee's okay. And, I've heard that he didn't want to take on salary, like a lot of teams that were trying to offer picks back. He didn't want to bring down salary. I think he said no to one trade because of Jared Vanderbilt. He wanted to keep him there, but look, I mean, this Detroit team is shaping up to be pretty good, Bogues. We'll go over it obviously as the preseason goes on, but you're talking about Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey they just drafted, who's, one of the best players in the draft. Sadiq Bey's good. Then you got Marvin Bagley and Stewart. Now you're shaping up, you got Bogdanovich coming off the bench or, and with a couple other players that aren't bad. That's I love the pickup for Detroit. You gave up almost, 2 average players for a guy who averaged 18 and 4 last year. I'm a fan. And that's about it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of if Boyan wants to stay there. That's what I'm saying. He's getting older in years. He might want to go to a winner, but he doesn't seem like that guy that's going to complain too much. He'll just come in and play his role and be a bucket for him. But I just thought it was strange. I mean, Detroit's scratching a plane, maybe scratching playoffs, maybe. I still think they're a year away from actually competing in the playoffs. But I just wonder if it all pans out or if he gets bought out before the deadline. That's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think he'll stay, though, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. The NBA, another new rule, pro. They've instituted a rule change this season in an effort to limit the prolonged standing of bench players and coaches while preventing the crowding of the sideline. A team will first receive a warning, followed by a delay of game warning. Then the team will be penalised with a technical foul. Teams will also be called for an unsportsmanlike for technical foul for bench players who enter the court or make a distracting move towards play. So this is obviously because, was it David Vanderpool?
Vanderpool and Theo Pinson from the Dallas Mavericks.
That's right. Yeah,
he's big on that.
Yep. So distracting shooters in the corner. This is just going to be one of those things that I don't know how you police it. I don't know how long is too long. I don't know, you want to cheer for your team. You don't want to, I think standing up, maybe they'll have some rule like after a big bucket, you can stand up and clap and then sit straight down. I don't know, but just another rule to be aware of. It'll be fun to watch that policed, especially in close games, pro, where the referee has the nuts to call a technical foul on someone with 2 minutes left in the fourth. Yet to be seen. The NBL Blitz is over, pro. Adelaide get a championship. They win the preseason chip. Now, sometimes people disrespect preseason championships. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with celebrating it to an extent. I'm not all about getting rings like they did in Summer League, although that was a bit crazy. But I think, we made that decision in Golden State when I first got there about our Summer League team saying, no one treats summer league seriously. Everyone just goes in, wins aren't important. We're going to treat this important. We're going to treat this like we're trying to win this thing. And we're going to set that mentality from day one. And 3 or 4 of those players ended up on our roster and continue that mentality. So I think it can be valuable. You don't want to go over the top, but I think it's a good thing for Adelaide. They haven't had a lot of success lately. So compliment them there. Ariel Huck-Porty, pro, he was on the NBA draft boards, big man with Melbourne United. He unfortunately does his Achilles, so he'll be out for at least a year. Big out for Melbourne United. They had a lot invested in him. They have Isaac Humphries. Thankfully, they signed him late in free agency. He was a fringe NBA guy. Big body helps them. At least they've got an insurance policy, but you hate to see that for the young kid as much as the rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney. You never want to see an injury like that. He's out, but yeah, the NBL Blitz, hard to gauge exactly what's going on. A lot of teams don't play a lot of their guys. We had a few guys banged up. So you just want to make sure. The biggest thing for me is with preseason pro is, all the players that get on the plane to go to that preseason tournament, you want to make sure they're getting back on that plane walking. The worst thing as a team owner, as a coach, as a GM is having someone get hurt in preseason when the game doesn't even matter. So we were fortunate that no one has picked up anything long term, a few little niggles here and there, and I think most teams are in pretty good shape. But well wishes to Ariel Huck-Porty. We hope he gets well, pro.
Yeah, you never want to see that, Bogues. I mean, guys getting hurt in preseason and practice, and that's the thing. It's like Russian roulette every day. It's just you never know. So trying to give those guys the best opportunity, Yeah, it's so sad to see the injury, especially a young kid that'll have a chance to be, a high draft pick. Good thing about modern science, a lot of these guys who do Achilles, especially young, early on in their career, they could still have, 85, 90% of what they were going to do. But it does hamper you for a while. It probably take 2 years to get you back to even close to 100%. Yeah, it stinks.
Especially as a big guy, heavier body, athletic, kind of the Andre Jordan type body. So we'll see how he goes. All right, Dabble real quick. Dabble is betting meets social media. Dabble, you can follow your friends, mates, whoever, pro, me, who knows, stalk the experts, trending tipsters, scroll through trending bets and copy them all in one tap. Get alerts when your mates and experts tipsters place bets. And most importantly, you can follow me on there, Andrew Bogut, all one word. It's a cool app. You can banter back and forth. There's some chat streams you can jump in. I've actually met a lot of people out and about that are actually on the app and have complimented how fun it is to use with all the emojis and whatnot. So we appreciate the support. Dabble socially, gamble responsibly, and be smart with it. Stats, useful or useless, pro? A few, two this week only. So, pro, there have been approximately 4,500 individuals that have played at least 1 minute in the NBA all time. Useful or useless?
For me, it's useful to see how many people have played in the league for a long time. I mean, think about it. The league lasted, in the 50s? I think it started, maybe a little less. And you're talking about 70 years. 4,500 players. It's always good to see how many players played the NBA. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, useful. That was actually tweeted by Kyrie Irving, funnily enough.
Interesting.
Just talking about how special it is and how people take it for granted. I mean, 4,500 individuals in the whole world since inception of the NBA was 70 years have ever played 1 minute in the NBA. That's pretty phenomenal. So count myself lucky to be one of those and very thankful for it. So useful or useless, pro? CP3 has been on a team with 3 ownership changes in his NBA career, pro. Useful or useless? Useless,
but entertaining. For sure. Just to figure that out.
It's like the Scott Foster CP3 thing.
Yeah, that's crazy though. That's crazy.
It is, because sometimes you never have an ownership change. I haven't been part of one formally. Senator Cole was my owner in Milwaukee, and then Lacob was already there when I got to Golden State, so that doesn't count for me. Most players don't go through one at all. He's been through 3, which is interesting. But pretty useless, but just a fun fact to throw out there. Fact or fake news, pro? What do you have?
Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a useful or useless. Jay Crowder, I listened. I'm starting to listen to Frank Isola and Brian Scalabrine on when I'm driving to high schools to do workouts in the morning, and they had this one from StatViews. Jay Crowder has more career playoff points than Derrick Rose, Tracy McGrady, Drew Holiday, and Anthony Davis. useful or useless.
That's pretty useful.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's the beholder. He's played much more games, but he's a winner, man. He's been on winning teams. I never would have picked some of those names. Not D Rose. They had some long 7-game series in Chicago when he was there too.
He's made the playoffs 9 out of 10 seasons.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's useful. Credit to Jake Ratter.
Yeah, credit to fucking Brian Scalabrine and fucking Frank Isola for fucking
stat muse.
Yeah, stat muse. Hey, good job, guys. Good job, guys. So, all right, that was my one and only ever useful useless stat, just to liven things up. All right, fact or fake news, Bogues. Obviously, it's going to be centered around Ime Udoka. We got a 2-part question.
Ime.
Ime.
Who's Ime, bro?
You said Bob Iger. Who the fuck is Iger? He's Iger. Bob Iger, by the way. So
fair point. Noted.
All right. Ime. Does Ime last a year before resigning or getting fired? Does he last a year?
I think the writing's on the wall. I think, no, fake news. He doesn't last a year. I think he's gone. I think the 1 year it's kind of setting the trap for him to maybe walk. I don't know if this is a cheeky way for Boston to maybe have him say, you know what, I'm walking away. And then what happens, like you said, with the contract. But I think this all gets wrapped up within the year and he's moving on to either somewhere else. I just don't think in today's day and age with cancel culture and whatnot and people getting so fired up online that you can then just a year later block your ears and say, oh, welcome back, Udoka. We're happy to have you back after, hope you've been working on your game. Just don't think it's going to happen. And what is he doing the next year? What's he doing? Is he just sitting at home on the couch?
He's staying home. He's not going to, he's not going to ring anybody's doorbell with the camera. He's going to stay home. We
forgot to mention that as well. It was reported that one of the women involved, her husband found out about the relationship with Udoka through a doorbell camera thing, whatever you call them. That's ouch. But anyway, yep, to go on. So what are you saying, fact or fake news?
I'm saying fake news. Here's the thing. It's just too much negativity with it. It's too much. They've gone too far in the sense that they've gone too far down the road. I like the way they handled it. It's too much negativity. It's too much distraction. And here's the thing, Bogues, that a lot of people got to understand. This league is about talent. It's about 90% talent, 10% coaching. You could have Red Auerbach, a DNA milkshake of Red Auerbach, Phil Jackson, Bill Belichick. It doesn't matter. If you have talent, you're going to be in a position to be successful. If you don't have talent, like your coaches are going to coach it up, to that much of the NBA. So they've got their roster.
Maybe 5 games a year.
Yeah,
maybe 5 games. Maybe 5 games.
And that coach could push a team that's maybe like right there over the edge. Look, they've got their young talent signed up. They've got everything in the organization's there. You got Brad Stevens there. You got a young coach, and Joe Mazzulla that you never know. I think he'll be fine. He'll have talent. He'll go through his bumps like Spoelstra did in Miami when they gave him this team right off the bat. They gave him a championship level team. I think that they'll be fine. I think they're going to move on. I think, unless there's something huge that happens, I think that Joe Mazzulla will be the coach long term. Like Frank Vogel did it when he was in Indiana when his coach got fired, and he rallied the troops. I've seen it happen. I think he'll be fine. I think he's going to be, he'll have the talent. I think he's fine. I think he gets fired. But I do think that they needed to be like, you know what, you sort of fucked us here. Here's the year suspension, and then they're going to figure it out at the end of the year. They're going to let him go, or they're going to come to some mutual agreement. He will be gone. Part 2, will he coach in the 23-24 season? He will coach in the 23-24
Fake news.
Yep.
No, he won't. Look, the head coach, definitely not. I mean, maybe he scratches on, as I said, and works his way back up as an assistant. But yeah, I think it's going to be a couple of years since you see him around the NBA again. So I'll go fake news. If it's an assistant, I think he's got more of a chance. But as a head coach, absolutely fake news.
Yeah, I say fake news. I think he will coach again as a head coach. I think probably latest 24, 25. Now, I will say some things have to happen in his favor. A, there was no physicality in like him forcing himself on these women, to prolong these relationships. And then also there was no confrontation that's going to come out. If everything sort of stays the way it is, I think people are forgiving. He's an ex-player, coached under the pop tree, made a final. I'm not saying that that's right. That sort of, that should erase everything that's happened. I don't think that, but I think we are in a forgiving society, especially for ex-players, that do this for one reason or another. I do think that obviously next year will be way too fast, but I do think within a couple of years, somebody who's going to say, you know what, the guy pay. Here's what I think. I think somebody's going to hire him. Maybe Pop will hire him as an assistant. And I think that
surely not Pop. He's too woke. Like he's very woke, man. Pop can't do that. Come on, man.
Yeah, I've seen crazier things. And then I think, Pop, then it's going to be like, oh, he deserves a second chance, and I think that they'll cleanse him for his sins and as long as it doesn't go overboard. And then I think somebody's going to rehire him. Look, and
there's C as well, pro. There's C that you're forgetting that the Ime Udoka better hope that none of these women are married to like a Liam Neeson type, that would be C. He's got to.
Yeah, I would
just back for a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely, he does. Look, man, fuck. We've talked about this and killed it already, but it's just, man, I just don't understand it. You had the world by the balls. You're a first-year coach, made the finals. They love you in that town. You have women all over the place. If this was some girl he met at a bar, nobody would give a fuck. It'd be 48 hours, and then gone. Why he had to fuck around with a girl or women in his own organization, that's what I don't understand. You've got everything going for you. And that's the thing. I don't understand it. He's a good looking dude. He's a young guy. He can get it anywhere. From being a grotesque motherfucker that nobody, that nobody ever love again. I could tell you that he's a fucking. I don't understand it.
I don't know, pro. We put a head coach label on you. Things might change. You might start looking slimmer and look like you have hair all of a sudden. To some people,
Bogues, I'm not gonna ever slim down, and I don't think I'll ever.
No, I'm saying you don't physically have to. I'm saying when you get that head coaching tab and a few more zeros on that,
dude,
on that account,
10 million.
You start looking better,
dude. He would have made. I mean, it still could happen, down the road, but that's 100 million he would have made minimum. I mean, he was going to be the next Doc Rivers,
championship, potential Hall of Fame. Yeah, there's a lot that goes in it, but there's one thing, pro, that's undefeated, and that's women. They're the 1 billion and zero. When you get involved in those kind of relationships, you get yourself in trouble, pro. I have one for you.
Oh,
I have a fact or fake news, just because I want to reciprocate the fact that you took time out of your day to find a useful and useless stat for us. I really appreciate that. While you were driving, you're penning it down on paper. Impressive. But the new rule I mentioned about the bench, pro, the bench standing up, sitting down, all that bullshit. Fact or fake news? The new NBA rule will last beyond January.
Fake news. Fake news. They're gonna it's like the travel call that fucking referee.
Exactly.
Yeah, that referee comes
That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah. Fake news. They're not.
The preseason's going to be brutal. Preseason, there's going to be 3-hour games because there's going to be 40 texts for standing up and waving your arms. It'll go on into November, maybe December, and then January. You'll never hear about it again, or until LeBron does it. Either or.
How about those jerk off assistants that try to fucking get on the camera every other fucking play? That's screaming like a little fucking leprechaun, fucking what the play is calling. How about those fucking
guys? Good friend Daryl Erman, he calling Erm out. It's Erm's role, baby.
No. Oh, you mean the Russian spy? No. I'm not talking about the Russian spy. But Bogues, what's going to happen. There's going to be, like you said, 9,000 texts but no one's going to give a fuck past January 1. It's going to be too much. You know, you can have all these like guys from organizations trying to rescind the fine. It's just like, they're going to put their hands up.
Totally agree. All right, that's another week. Hope you enjoyed. Let us know your thoughts around everything we spoke about. A little bit controversial there to discuss that Ime Udoka thing because you can never get it right or wrong completely. But let us know what you think, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, Pro.
Later, Bogues. Later, everybody.
Recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get rogue.